Do you ever have a particular stamp that you want to use on a card, but it's fairly small and you're not sure how to fill up the rest of the card? Or do you have a set that has 2 or 3 or maybe 4 different smaller stamps in it and you want to use all of them, but you're not exactly sure how to put them together and make it look nice? Today I want to share with you 4 card layouts that are perfect for both of those situations. As we go through, I'm also going to share some coloring techniques or ideas for when you need to fill in an outline stamp and you're not really in the mood for coloring. So we have lots to look at today. I hope you'll follow along, and let's get started. The stamp set that inspired this video is right here. It's called Adorable Owls, and I'll talk about it a little bit more here soon. But I wanted to use all 3 of the owl stamps, and I was thinking that sometimes when I want to do this, I want to put them together, but I'm not exactly sure the best way of doing it easily. You could mask them where you cover up part of an image, stamp one behind the other. There's lots of ways of doing it, but I thought it might be helpful to share some simple ways to use several stamps on one card. Or let's say maybe you just have one owl or one of something in a particular stamp set. You want to use it several times. These layouts are perfect for that as well. So let's take a look at my first one. This first one we're actually going to stamp and walk through here for a couple of minutes. And then the other 3 I already have made up, and I will share with you after we finish this one right here. I'm going to start by stamping my 3 owls. And actually, I should explain how I created this piece of designer paper and why it has holes in it. So this is a technique I like to use. I've done this several times. You want to start with an overlay piece that is either the same size as your card front or just slightly smaller. So you can trim it down so that the border will show around the outside if you like. So my piece when I started measured 4 by 5.5. So I'll have border on the left and the right showing, but none at the top and the bottom. So then what I did, I brought in a punch. I've done this a lot of times with regular circle punches. This time I decided to use my decorative circle punch. And what I did, as you can see, I just lined it up several times and I punched several different places. I like the look when I do this of lining it up and punching out 3 different places. Now this punch is a little bit larger than I prefer. A lot of times I use a circle punch that's a little bit smaller, but I thought this would be cute to try something different this time. So now that I have this, I can do a couple of things to help with the next step. But what I want to do basically is to stamp one of these owls onto the base of my card in each, where it's going to show through in each of those holes. Now, if your stamps are actually smaller than your punch, you can just lay this right here and do your stamping, and it should be quick and easy. Now, for this one, for example, I am going to need to lift up my overlay piece and stamp this and then put my overlay back. So I need to mark somehow where those holes are. So what you can do that is a pretty simple idea is to take a pencil and make very light marks in a couple of spots so that you're going to know where the outline of those holes will be. So you can do that for your 3 holes, remove this piece, do your stamping and put it back. Now here's another idea, and this is one that I do a lot of times, and I don't know if we can call this lazy stamping. I often try to find the quick and easy way to do things. Quick and painless. I want to enjoy my stamping. I don't want it to feel like work. And I'll show you what I do sometimes. So I will line it up. I have my overlay piece where it will be when I attach it, pretty close. I am going to line up my stamp, pull the piece out, stamp, and here you can see we got it in the right spot. So I'm going to do that 3 times. You're going to see with these owl cards, you are going to see several different color schemes. Couple of non-traditional ones as we go through, and one definitely traditional. I think I can stamp this without it hanging over. So there we got all 3 of those owl stamp. Now, if these had been too big, I would have done the same thing. I would have lined up my stamp, pulled this out, and then stamped right away without moving my stamp very much. And I've had pretty good luck with them ending up in the right spots with this. Okay, so now that I have that done, I am going to show you one of my less conventional ways of coloring and outline stamps. And I'm going to do it using a stamp from the Hello Beautiful stamp set right here. I love texture stamps because you can use them in so many ways. In my opinion, you can actually use the texture and the abstract stamps in a lot more ways than you can some of our specific stamps, just because you can get creative and the sky's the limit. So now I'm going to stamp with this particular texture stamp. And this was Calypso Coral ink. Now I am adding some Pale Papaya, and I am just going to put this somewhere approximately over that owl and stamp over each one of them. So that is going to be it for my coloring on this particular card. So bring in my designer paper piece. I will put some adhesive on the back of this and we'll get it attached down. I'll add a greeting, and this card will be done and we can move on, and I'll show you my other ideas for how to make some similar cards. So when you attach your piece, depending on how your shapes turned out, how your punches were laid out, you just want to make sure you get all of those corners and strips with some good adhesive on them. I may have to put a little bit of glue down under this piece when we finish here. But I'll add a quick greeting. I do want to talk about this adorable owl stamp set. This greeting says, "Hoot hoot, you're so cute." And here we have a simple way to use those 3 different stamps. And like I showed you, a creative way to add some color and make a really quick card. So the adorable owl stamp set, this is actually one of the ones you can get free right now during sale-a-bration. Now, how sale-a-bration works is with every $50 you spend, you get to choose 1 free item. If you stick around until the end, I will share with you some other cards I've made with free items. There are a lot of stamp sets and paper packs to choose from. They're all really nice ones. And yeah, I'll show you those here in a few minutes. Here is a second idea for how to lay out this scenario where you have several stamps or you want to use the same one several times. And for this one, this is kind of a classic. I've done this loads of times where I just use a particular punch. I could have just done the 3 punches. I decided to mat them with a larger circle. And then my classic with this idea is to put a strip behind there, a strip of designer paper. So actually, I will mention this designer paper is one of the free product options during sale-a-bration as well. It is actually free. It's a huge paper pack. I think you get 48 sheets. It's beautiful. They're mostly pastels, but some brighter colors mixed in. And it is free. The paper pack is free with a $100 order. So what I did with this one, I stamped with my Memento ink and I colored these in with my watercolor pencils. So I did it the quick and easy way. I could get out my blender pen if I wanted to. If I want this to look really nice and smooth, I could go ahead and get my blender pen and blend those colors, make them look nice and smooth. But I like this as just a real simple way to do some coloring that's pretty carefree. And I thought it was kind of a fun addition to add some ribbon popping out for behind the circles. So I added that. Now let's look at my third idea. Here's another one with an unconventional coloring method, we'll call it. And my fourth one, my fourth one is the one where I really spent my time on the coloring and I love how it turned out. So this one, my idea is to do a little peek through where it looks like if you have animals, for example, you can make your little creatures look like they're peeking through a wall. I use the brick and mortar embossing folder. Here I use little tiny strips of my favorite new paper pack. It is called Fine Shimmer Specialty Paper. And I'm going to have links to all the products down below if you want to take a look. But I love this paper, and as you can see, just a teeny little bit really adds a lot to this card. So my unconventional coloring method for this is to use some designer paper and to stamp on top of it. So that way you get some color. It's a lot more interesting than if you just stamped in a single color on top of white cardstock, for example. But you get that cute effect, you get the color, and I thought this turned out nicely as well. So now let's look at the fourth one. And this is the one I used my blends markers to color these in. So I stamped with Memento ink, and I thought since they were owls, I thought it would be great to make it look like it was a tree in the background. So I used a leaf stamp from this Botanical Layer stamp set for lots of leaves, and then I just cut these into squares and rectangles. So this is perfect for a lot of different stamps you may be thinking of, where you just trim them to the size they need to be, add a little mat behind them if you like, and color in whatever way you choose to. For those of you interested in blending with alcohol markers, I love my blends markers, and I thought I would show you, I just saved a little tiny bit right here so that I could show you how I do my blending. For the most part, I am really happy with the blending results I can get, and sometimes I get asked how I use the blends. So I'm going to show you right now. So what I do is, let's say for these cards, for these owls, I only use 2 colors on each area. So on the lighter part of the face, I used 2 colors of tan or brown. On the darker part of the owl, I used 2 colors. For the eyes, I used 2 colors. So what I do is I color in the full area that I'm doing. Now, if I'm doing a large area, this gets a little bit different sometimes, but for these smaller areas, this is how I do it. Color in the entire area with my lightest color. Then I come in with my darker color, and I add just a little bit in the spots where I think the shadows would be. So on the owls down here at the bottom, that was a spot where obviously there would be shadows. After I add my dark wherever I want it, then I come back in and I color that entire area again with my lighter marker. Now sometimes I have to work a little bit harder at blending, but on these, with these small areas and keeping the ink really nice and wet, I found that this is all I have to do. So I start by coloring the area with light, I add my dark, I come back in and color the area with the light again, and it all pretty much just blends on its own, which is fantastic. Now, if you've never used these markers before, I would really encourage you to try them. I've never really enjoyed coloring with markers a whole lot, but these I think are just amazing. I love the results. They're just so pretty, and you don't have to do the blending if you don't want to. Even if you just color in the area with a single color, they turn out really nice that way as well. So what I did on the eyes, I colored the light area, and then I came back in and did dark around the pupil, and then came back in with my light again and just colored that again. So here you can see the results with this one, and these are a little bit dark. Those areas I just colored will lighten up a bit as time goes on and keep blending a little bit more, but I just love how this one turned out. So here are the 3 layout ideas and the 3 coloring ideas, so you can see them one more time. And I promised I would share with you some sale-a-bration card ideas. So other projects you can make with free products available now through the end of February. Now here's one more I created with this adorable owl set. And I have an idea for like an expanding one of these that would have several owls in it. Haven't had time to create it yet, but that's a fun idea to play around with if you would like. But I created this one to look like the little owls in the tree. I embossed the tree trunk with the my wood grain embossing folder and added the leaves up here. So I thought that turned out really fun. Now for some other sets that are available free right now, let's look at a few projects I created with them. Here is one that the rabbit is not included. The rabbit was added separate, but this adorable carrot stamp set. I never knew I needed a carrot stamp set until I got this one and started playing around with it, and I've really been having fun with it. This is a designer paper print in one of the paper packs. I just think this is stunning. And as you can see, makes really beautiful cards with not much work at all. This one, the designer paper, is actually one of the free product options. We have a stamp and die set that coordinates with it. I use the die set to cut the animals out of the designer paper. I love that they coordinate that way. But the paper pack is one of the free product options. And this is one as well. I love this. Is a two-step stamp set where you stamp the outline and then you fill it in. This one, I know sometimes I get questions about having difficulty lining up two-step stamps. And occasionally I have problems as well. I know it can be difficult sometimes. This one I think is one of the easiest ones to line up that I've used in quite a while. So I'll mention that just in case you stay away from the two-step stamps. This one I do think is pretty easy to line up. Last but not least, I made these 4 cards for a recent tutorial, and I'm going to link to several things in the video description below. Tutorial on watercolor pencils, a tutorial on the blends markers. Some of these cards I had a video on, and then this one was another tutorial. And the paper pack, the stamp and die set is a product that can be purchased, but then the paper pack that I used for these is this is a piece of designer paper in the background that I embossed over top of. This designer paper pack is one of the free product options. So I just think this is absolutely beautiful. I had a ton of fun making these cards. Actually, this tutorial was about embossing techniques. So I shared, I think 5 or 6 different heat embossing techniques. I don't know if you can tell, all of these flowers were heat embossed here, but just a really fun tutorial. So if you want the links for those, take a look in the video description below, and you can keep on watching and learning all kinds of fun stamping techniques. Thanks so much for watching along. If you want to take advantage of sale-a-bration, make sure to do so before the end of February. Hope you have a blessed day, and I hope you'll be back again next time when I'll be here helping you to hand make with love.